Hi, my name's Lucy. I'm a physiotherapist specialising in cancer. So a lot of my work is around supporting people who have cancer-related fatigue. So in this video, I'm going to be talking to Gill, hi Gill, about her experiences with cancer-related fatigue. So Gill, are you able to just tell us a bit about your experience with cancer?
Sure, so I've been diagnosed with breast cancer twice. Both times they were found by a routine mammogram. My first time I had a lumpectomy and reconstruction, which was followed by radiotherapy. The second time I had a mastectomy because it was the same side. I didn't have reconstruction, but because I'd already had radiotherapy, I didn't need it again and I didn't need chemo.
Okay, great. And are you happy to share a little bit about your experience with cancer-related fatigue, so when you first noticed it?
Yes, it's quite interesting that I kind of lived in denial that I had fatigue. During radiotherapy, I had a bit of fatigue. I went back to work and I just carried on with life. It actually wasn't till after my second diagnosis and I was doing a bike ride from Milan to Venice. So it was a charity bike ride and it was 210 miles over 3 days. So I had my surgery in November and the bike ride was the following September. And I was slower than my friends, but I just thought, it's the bike and things like that. I'll be fine on the day. And actually on the first day, we did the first leg and I was at the back and I actually was asked to go in the backup vehicle because I was that much slower than the others. And I was really quite upset, quite emotional at the time. So I was in the backup vehicle and I ended up doing that for the first 2 days. And then on day 3, I just stayed in the backup vehicle and did the last leg. So it was still 25, 30 miles a day, which is no mean feat. But on reflection, I thought, of course I couldn't do it. How could I do that sort of training while suffering from fatigue? And that's when it really came home to me that, you know, I should have really listened to myself earlier on.
Are you able to tell us a little bit about how kind of normal tiredness is different from that cancer-related fatigue you experienced?
Fatigue for me was almost like a total exhaustion. You just can't physically go on and everything is a real effort to do, even getting up and trying to make dinner or just going out for a short walk. It's a real effort. And it's not even the walk, it's getting ready to go out for the walk. It's like, I really just can't do this. That to me was the difference.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about how fatigue impacted your day-to-day routine. So things like, you know, getting up and dressed in the morning. How did it affect you there?
So I used to get up at 6 a.m. to go to the gym and do a session there and you know, get on with my day. But you know, I now have to set the alarm for like 7:30 to get up, and even then sometimes it's a struggle.
Cancer-related fatigue isn't necessarily resolved with rest, but did you kind of wake up feeling restored after a night's sleep or not particularly?
Not a guarantee, but that's just what fatigue's like. It's just having a good night's sleep doesn't mean you're not going to get fatigue. It helped to prepare, so lying out clothes the night before was really helpful, so I haven't got to think about doing something like that. And just other little areas where you can prepare. Preparing my work area, because I work from home, so make sure my desk was ready just for me to start work. And just little things like tidying up the kitchen the night before, unloading the dishwasher the night before, and getting people at home to help as well, because I wasn't on my own. So I've got my husband and my boys were at home at the time, and they did a bit. It was literally just a bit. So I ended up getting a cleaner to help, because there was absolutely no way I could do the chores that I really needed and wanted to do around the house to keep on top of everything.
Definitely. And maybe actually, you know, outsourcing some of that pressure and those tasks might enable you to have enough energy to do things that you do enjoy doing,
and give me a better quality of life as well, because you don't want to spend all your positive time cleaning the house. You want to sort of go out for walks and spend time with your family.
Friends. That's good. And just to add to that, maybe, you know, like you said, putting your clothes out ready for the morning to save some energy there. And it might be kind of sitting down while you're getting dressed rather than trying to stand up and do it. So some people might find it useful actually having a stool in the shower to sit down, so you're conserving energy in that way. Also maybe things like having slip-on shoes might be easier for some people, and getting a little bit of physical activity as well in your day can really help the sleep and your energy as well. So speaking of physical activity and exercise, did you find that your fatigue impacted your ability to exercise at all?
Yeah, definitely. Before I had my first diagnosis, I'd done a full marathon.
Wow, yeah.
Which is quite an achievement, but now I can't even do a park run. I used to go and watch my son's band a lot.
Yeah.
And, I'd be up on the dance floor
Right.
sort of for most of, definitely all of the second set. But
Yeah.
now I wait till he's got a gig that starts at 7 o'clock at night and finishes at 9 and might be up for one song and that's about it.
Yeah.
But, at least I can go and see him still, which is
Absolutely.
the main thing. And chair dancing's fine.
Yeah, exactly. I think we do understand that fatigue can really impact your ability to exercise as normal. But actually what we know from the research is exercise can be one of the best ways to manage your fatigue. But it might just be we need to modify it, as you've kind of said there. So, little and often can be really great. If you're able to, getting out and about, even if it's just for a short walk or a short period of time, is really beneficial. And it might be that actually, if you're experiencing sort of high levels of fatigue, maybe engaging in some lower intensity forms of activity can be beneficial, such as maybe Pilates, yoga, or even chair-based exercises can be really helpful. So physical activity can be a great way to mentally prepare for going back to work. Are you able to share some of your experiences with how you managed your fatigue and work? I understand you took a bit of time off work during your treatment. Was that helpful for you?
Yes, it was. My first diagnosis, I had radiotherapy, so I did a little bit of work before my appointment, but only in the early days because radiotherapy does cause a lot of fatigue.
Yeah.
So I just didn't have the energy towards the end of the 15 days. But not long after that, I did return to work.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. And did you find that your employer was supportive during that time? Were they checking in with you during that period of time?
Yes, I did. I did have somebody covering for me while I was off.
Yeah.
But again, that creates the, I hope they're not better than me kind of thing. But it was also a relief because there was absolutely no pressure. And what I did was almost like special projects. So it was just a nice piece of work which was adding value, but not putting me under any pressure.
So were you able to talk to your employer, Gill, about any reasonable adjustments that could be made with your work?
Yeah, my first conversation was with occupational health, and they made some recommendations which were supported by my line managers. So yeah, had some great support there and some great ideas. What they suggested is that just reducing my hours, but what I needed was regular breaks.
Yeah.
I didn't want to work like a 4-hour chunk.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do was sort of maybe work a bit later, finish a bit earlier, and then have every hour have a break.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way, pacing yourself, having that
Yeah.
mental break from work. Yeah, it's a great way to kind of try and manage that fatigue a little bit
Yeah.
while still being able to work
Absolutely.
and do your normal thing.
Everyone's different.
Yeah.
It worked for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, you've hit the nail on the head there. It is personal. Everyone's
Yeah.
experience of fatigue is personal.
Absolutely.
So being able to have that discussion with your employer, maybe with occupational health, like you
Yes.
mentioned,
Yeah.
and then you can really tailor those adjustments around your needs, which is great.
And sometimes speaking to somebody like occupational health, they're suggesting things that you don't think is an option.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant to have that conversation.
So thank you for sharing those ideas, Gill. I think that's really useful to hear how some of those changes were really beneficial for you. So just to recap some of those tips, having that conversation with your employer about any reasonable adjustments that can be made, maybe looking into flexible working hours, allowing yourself to have breaks during the day to pace yourself, maybe looking at hybrid working, or even changing the context of your work. That might be less fatiguing. And, speaking to your employer about maybe having some time off work for medical appointments, things like that can be useful. For some people who are self-employed, you might not be able to get sick pay, but it's always worth talking to someone about that because there might be some other support available for you. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the support you received during your cancer treatment and that helped you manage your fatigue. Some people have found kind of using fatigue diaries helpful. Was that something that you were aware of or you used?
I wasn't aware of it actually, no, and it probably would have been useful and it probably would have helped me to understand that I did have fatigue and I should be dealing with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes, like you mentioned, being in denial with the fatigue, sometimes they can be a useful strategy to help identify maybe some triggers of things that make your fatigue worse, but also on the other hand of actually finding things that do give you that boost of energy or times in the day you feel better. And then that can help you kind of plan things that you're doing during the week. And what about things like complementary therapies? Did you use that at all?
I didn't, no, I didn't really. Sort of, again, I think because I was in a bit of denial that I had fatigue.
That's something that other people have found really beneficial, maybe things like acupuncture, aromatherapy, reflexology. They can be, again, other useful strategies to help manage your fatigue. And what about support that you had from your cancer team? Did you complete a holistic needs assessment?
Yes, I did. It was about 2 months after I had surgery, and it was an electronic holistic needs assessment. So I filled out a questionnaire online, and 2 weeks later I had an appointment to speak to one of the cancer nurses. It actually asks you a lot of questions that you didn't think about.
Yeah.
So that's when I started thinking a little bit about fatigue, because that is one of the questions on there.
Yeah.
So it was very useful and a lovely conversation.
Good, that's great. Yeah. Okay. And obviously with the questionnaire, that's something that can be completed sort of in handwritten form, or you completed it virtually, for example. And then you said, you had that conversation with your cancer nurse over the phone, but I guess also for other people that might be something that they can do face-to-face with their cancer team as well.
Yes, definitely.
Just to summarise our conversation there, the Holistic Needs Assessment is a questionnaire that people can fill in and highlight their concerns that they might have experienced during their cancer treatment. And like you said there, that can help you identify some of the challenges you might have faced, but also from a professional point of view, for us to get a good understanding of what the patient's going through so that we can provide support and, help them manage as best they can during their cancer treatment. So we know that eating well is really important for maintaining your energy levels during your treatment, and that can be helpful for managing fatigue.
Yeah.
Can you share with us how you kind of manage your shopping and meal prep?
Sure. I mean, I used to be known for my 3 supermarket shops on a Thursday night. I'd do one supermarket for the bargains, another supermarket for the stuff I couldn't get at the bargain supermarket, and then another supermarket to get some nice treats and luxuries. But I just didn't have the energy after I had my mastectomy, and particularly I couldn't drive either. So I ended up getting my shopping delivered, and I still do. So go to a supermarket still for the luxuries, but I do pick my time because too many people, the crowds, and that gets a bit much.
I wondered if you might be able to share whether you had to make any changes to the food you ate during that period of time where you were struggling with your fatigue, or whether you made any changes to how you prep your food, things like that.
From a cooking perspective, we've always cooked. My husband also cooks. He has started doing more of the cooking. And even at the weekends, it might be that he might do the odd meal in the week, and I'd say, right, okay, on a Saturday, I've got the energy I've got all day. But I'd still find, when it comes to about 5 o'clock, I really haven't got the energy. So I try to, when I do the menu selection, I try and pick more of the foods that he cooks and the meals he cooks. He doesn't know I'm doing that, so I hope he doesn't watch this. But yeah, so that's how we get around it.
So kind of, doing your bits when you felt you were energised and able to do it, which is great. So you're kind of maintaining that, but also, being able to share some of the tasks with your family is really helpful, take some of the pressure off maybe. Some people find that, making a food shopping list before going out to the shops can be really helpful, so you don't have to think about it while you're in there. Or, maybe prepping some food ahead of time so that, say, for example, before treatment, and you might have some meals ready to go after treatment. Is that something that you did at all? Yeah,
I always plan my menus for the week, so my shopping list is written around the menus. But we also would make in bulk. When I say we, my husband mainly, he made a pretty mean curry and a chilli. So they're ideal foods to make in bulk and keep in the freezer. So it's something quite healthy.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's works for us, and it is a relief when oh yeah, we've got a curry in the freezer, or there's a chilli we can have tonight. That's great.
Exactly, without the effort. Perfect.
And it is a good one as well.
Great. So just to recap, making a shopping list ahead of time, meal prepping ahead of time, and maybe sharing some of those tasks with friends or family as well. And changing up the food shop, so getting things delivered rather than having to go out and do the shop yourself. And I guess maybe for some other people, it might be if you're not able to make all those lovely meals at home, maybe getting in some ready meals, because that might be easier for them instead. And what about your kind of overall well-being, Gill? Did you find that your fatigue impacted your mood at all?
I think it did, and I think there's a lot of frustration as well when you feel that you can't do what you expect to do, just everyday stuff.
Yeah.
Got back to yoga when I could. I couldn't do it straight away because of having lymph nodes removed. I liked open water swimming, but again, I had to wait until I could go back into doing that. But that was nice to be outside. I think that's what I enjoyed about that. And a bit of gardening. You know, you don't have to do a lot of gardening. You don't have to dig the whole garden over to sort of, you know, get some benefits of being out in nature.
Yeah.
So just focusing on what you can do and, you know, enjoy it.
Yeah, lovely. And did you have much support from kind of friends and family during that period of time?
I don't think I shared too much with them because I think once my treatment had finished, it was like, off you go kind of thing. I'm a member of the employees network at work, and it's great to talk to like-minded people. And also there's some groups, whether you meet physically or actually on social media, that if you've got any worries, you can just chat to them. So it's nice to talk to people who've been through the same, so that you know it's not just you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's great that you found that helpful.
Absolutely.
And what about the Macmillan support line? Was that something you used at all?
Yes, I did, and I used them through both my diagnoses as well.
Great.
I was hesitant at first because I thought, well, I don't know what to ask. But they said, just phone up, tell them what's on your mind, tell them what is going to happen next or what your next appointment is, and they'll talk to you and tell you and explain everything to you. And they're absolutely brilliant. You talk to a nurse and yeah, they were brilliant.
Oh, that's fantastic. You had that experience. That's great. Yeah, good. So is there any advice that you would give someone else experiencing cancer-related fatigue, or maybe something you wish you'd known before?
I think listen to your body is key in any situation, but particularly with fatigue. I wish I'd known about the fatigue diary before because I think that would have helped me manage my fatigue better. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your experiences with us today. It's been great to hear some of the useful things that you put in place to help you manage through your kind of treatment. And I think, being able to share that with other people will hopefully benefit others as well. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
So finally, to summarise some of the things we've talked about in this video, fatigue is a really common problem experienced by people with a cancer diagnosis, and that can look different for everyone. But there are things you can do to help manage your fatigue. So for example, like we discussed earlier, pacing out your activities and taking breaks where needed, and also trying to incorporate some physical activity during the day can be really helpful. There is lots of support available, be that from friends or family, but you can also reach out to your cancer team for more support. For more information, please visit macmillan.org.uk or call the support line on 0808 808 0000.